Hi, Frank. So wonderful to have you on the show.
Hi, Anjali. It's lovely to be here.
We all love Queen. And you have just written one of the most amazing songs for Queen. Did you feel little sorry that it was only played after he, like the whole thing moved on and became part of their repertoire after, Freddie Mercury?
On the posthumous album,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, that song had an incredible genesis because it was written in 1987
Yes.
with Brian. And what had happened was I was living in Los Angeles, living the dream. I had my house in Laurel Canyon with a recording studio, and,
Oh, wow.
and it was an English boy's dream of Hollywood, And my manager at the time rang me up and said, my friend Brian May's in town and he's on his own and he's a bit sad, do you think, a familiar accent or whatever, give him a cup of tea or whatever. So Brian came over to the house and he was going through a terrible time emotionally, and he's a very sensitive character, wonderful guy. He's just been knighted, by the way.
Yes, I know.
He's now Sir Brian May, which is quite difficult
That's
to understand.
right.
He's a wonderful guy, and we struck up a great friendship, and I think I was there at the right time, making cups of tea, and I was going through a weird thing myself. I was breaking up with my girlfriend at the time, and so Brian, being the sensitive character he was, would end up telling me his story and being in tears the whole time. And after about 2 days, I just said, Brian, look, we've got to do something with this. And I handed him the guitar. And I just said, let's do something positive with
So
this.
is it the broken heart that made the title of the song called Too Much Love Will Kill
Well,
You?
I mean, it's obvious, Too Much Love Will Kill You. He was between relationships. He was leaving. He was very undecided. He'd met Anita Dobson, fallen in love with her. And at the same time, he was leaving his family behind, and he was
That's
just broken.
right.
He was in pieces about it. And I was in a similar situation myself. And we recorded the song. Really, it was therapy more than anything else. I never had any idea that Queen would record it. It was just a song that we wrote together. And the interesting thing about it was that it's one of those songs. As soon as he played the piano on the original demo in my studio, and then when he went back to London, he called me up and he said, "I've played it to the rest of the band, and Freddie in particular would like to record it." And I went,
my God,
"What?
wow.
Are you serious?" And because Queen had never recorded an outside song apart from the collaboration with David Bowie, they were
That's
very,
right.
very protective
Very
about
tight, yes.
they were a tight unit. So I said, "Yes, absolutely." I mean, and he said, "And we've tried recording the piano part again, and it just doesn't sound the same." He said, "Could I take the multi-track, the original sort of
Yes, of
16-track
course.
multi-track from my demo studio?" So I just said, "Yes, of course." So the demo, the piano part that you hear on the actual record is Brian playing on the original demo
At your
in my studio in
studio.
Laurel Canyon, because
Oh
it
my
had a
God.
vibe, it had a thing about
Yes.
it which just couldn't be reproduced. And then Roger overdubbed the drums, and the bass was John Deacon, and Freddie absolutely killed it. I mean, that vocal
I
to
don't
me
know
still
which
gives
song
me
he-
goosebumps, 30 years on. And there is a strong connection as well with India. I mean, I have this abiding love for India, and we've been here so many times, and there is nobody in the world who can sing like Freddie. And one of the reasons is because Freddie is Indian, and Freddie has these vocal cords and this background, his 4-octave range and all of this stuff. But, his heart was in Indian music, even though he was a rock
Yes.
star and he sang opera and sang all these things. And it was very interesting because in 1991 they did a benefit concert for Freddie and to raise money for AIDS, and it was
Yes.
at Wembley Stadium. There
That's
were 100,000
right.
people
We all
there,
remember that one.
and it was the first time the song had ever been sung in public. And I wasn't sure they were going to sing it at all. I was sitting in the stands, like with the rest of the 100,000. And suddenly, and there was Elton John, there was George Michael, there was Lisa Stansfield, there was
Michael.
Annie Lennox, there was David Bowie. I mean, you name it. It was like the whole pantheon
Galaxy
of rock
of them,
stars were
yes.
there. None of whom, to be honest, were reaching the heights that Freddie had reached. Possibly George Michael was
I was just
in
going
that
to say
league.
that.
George,
See, everybody thinks
well,
the same
George's
way.
version of Somebody to Love had everybody just, standing up and
Oh, I still
applauding.
have goosebumps
Yeah.
thinking about that.
So the great thing about, and this just shows you how songs develop a life of their own.
Yes.
Brian, halfway through the show, suddenly, after Radio Gaga and all these big anthems, there was just silence. And Brian said, "No, I'm going to play my own personal tribute to Freddie." And the song's never been heard before. And I'm suddenly thinking, oh my God, this is going to go down really badly, in a football stadium. So he played the song, and he got to the first chorus and there was absolute silence. You could hear a pin drop. And I was sort of slinking more and more down in my seat thinking, this song is dying a death here. It's really not going down well. And he got to the end of the first chorus and suddenly this spontaneous kind of, this amazing roar happened. And I swear it was like 5,000 volts went through my body. I've never felt an energy like that. It was extraordinary.
I can imagine.
And the whole audience, this whole football stadium of people just zeroed in on the song.
Tell me something before you go, which has to be extremely deep-rooted in Kerala. How has Kerala been treating you and what did you like most about it?
Oh, well, I mean, first of all, the welcome that we got from James's friends, Sujitra and her whole circle of friends who are just wonderful, and your good self, obviously. India's very special to us. This is my wife and I. This is our 6th time in India.
Wow.
So, and it's such a vast country. We've tried to see as much as we possibly can in the north and the south and all over. But it's just I think we can spend the rest of our lives doing it. I hope so.
Yes, I know that would be. Does the heat ever get to you, or you're just very happy with it?
No, I love it, and I have a huge passion for Indian music as well. I love it. I mean, Rahman for me is the greatest composer alive. I think he's incredible. He's up there with Morricone and all of the others.
He's really fabulous.
He's extraordinary. I mean, it's a life's ambition for me to meet him and to possibly work with him.
That is something I could do for you.
Okay,
that is something I can do. Yeah, that's a deal. And it's really been wonderful because through your life and through your journey, I've vicariously lived and been in all those recording studios where you've sampled, where you've written music and kind of understood the kind of feeling you have had with artists, because songs are not just a production of just music notes thrown together. It's got to do a lot with the heart and soul and the environment you're in at that particular time, right?
Well, they have a life of their own. That's the extraordinary thing. You write a song and then it develops and evolves and you never know what the journey is going to be. I mean, as with Too Much Love Will Kill You, it took 10 years for that song to become publicly known, Other songs, everything just goes bang, bang, bang and it's suddenly out there.
Do you feel possessive about your songs when it's been done in a way that you don't like it?
I used to be. I was one of my most embarrassing things was I had written Every Woman in the World for Air Supply. And
yes.
I didn't know who Air Supply were. It was actually written for Billy Ocean, and we recorded.
Yes, I read that as well. They were Billy Ocean.
And we heard it as a sort of soul ballad, like Teddy Pendergrass, and Billy sang it that way, and he did a beautiful job. And it was in this movie, the same as Married Men, the one I talked about. And Clive Davis, the legendary Clive Davis from Arista Records, who very kindly recorded a lot of our songs, sent us a version of Every Woman in the World by this new Australian band called Air Supply. And I heard it and I just thought, this is terrible. This is the worst version I've ever heard.
It became to be the biggest song ever.
I know. And I had the temerity in my late 20s to send Clive Davis a telegram saying, please don't record this, don't put this record out. It's terrible. It sounds awful. It's not what we... And I'm thinking... in retrospect, I'm thinking, what an idiot,
Totally. Imagine if you're taking it seriously.
Thank God he said, thank God he just disregarded my thing
Telegram.
because that song went on to be a massive hit in America.
Like huge all over the world.
Used in tons of movies. It was used in a film called Sliver with Sharon Stone. It was used in a
It's used all over the place.
Everywhere. It's become more anthemic probably in America than anywhere else. And when you write a song, you have a concept in your mind of how it should be. And because I was heavily into R&B music at the time, their version, our Air Supply's version, which by the way I have learned to love,
so that's what I would.
Particularly having received some of the royalty checks over the years.
When your song is your own, it's like literally you've given birth to the song.
Yeah.
So do you feel the relationship with your song is like you would have with your child, or is it like you would have with your lover?
I think it's a bit of both. Yeah. I honestly think it's a bit of both, and I think
because your child can grow up and you just acceect it to be who it is, and then the lover kind of changes the whole dimension of the song.
And also, time and maturity gives you a different perspective on things. You're not so adamant about your own musical tastes. At the time, it wasn't what I wanted for the song. It certainly wasn't the first version that I wanted people to hear. But in retrospect, Air Supply did a brilliant job on it, and maybe their version hit more people over worldwide than an R&B version would have done. Which was very much the road that I was going down. And it just shows you the enduring power of a song, that you can interpret it in many ways, and it can be just as meaningful and just as important and universal for a wider audience.
And actually the song
so
is
I'm
always
eternally grateful to Clive Davis for
not
listening to me and for disregarding my telegram.
So before you decide to send your letters to your bosses, please think about it, because sometimes it'll be seen immediately on WhatsApp. So don't do that, because maybe it's going to be the best thing that ever happened to you, right?
Exactly.
Frank Musker, absolutely stunning having you on Radio Mango. Thank you ever so much.
It's been a total privilege and a pleasure. It's lovely to meet you, and it's lovely to be on this wonderful show.